now begin with the roll call. James Hernandez will not be able to join us today. Joseph Guerra.
Present.
Luis Gomez.
Present.
Michael Valdez.
Present.
Richard Santoyo.
Here.
Mr. Frank Espinosa is on his way, and I, Martha Castilla, am here. Let the record show that a quorum of the Edgewood Independent School District School Board is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States of the flag and follow the
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you.
Madam President, we do not have any citizens communication.
Okay, sir. Your report, please.
Okay, welcome board members, SLC staff, and guests to this evening's workshop for the month of April. Before we get started, I have a couple of logistical information that I'm going to ask that our board manager come up and explain. Board members, you should have an iPad in front of you now, and so we are going to ask Ms. Castillo. Ms. Castillo, come up. And just do a couple of logistical things that we're going to talk about with those iPads.
So if you don't have your iPad open already, if you just double click on your iPad, the board book is uploaded for you. We will be using these moving forward with the board book at the board workshops. You all have the dais in front of you, you've got your screens. But this will help you go through, swipe. This will help you go through each of the items that will be in discussion for tonight's presentations or agenda items. And then that way you have everything in detail. The board book that I normally send out to you all that's posted online, it has this information, but the information can look kind of funky, so this is an easier way for you to review everything. So if you have any questions, let me know. I can run over and show you.
All right. The other thing, board members, that I want to share with you, it's going to be part of my PowerPoint this evening. We are starting to record these videos, and so that's the screen that you see there in the back. And so we will be recording our workshops, and then of course, I will be posting these on the website. I just need to get that webpage developed and things of that nature. But we will be recording that, and so we'll have that out for constituents just like we do with our regular board meetings, just like we do with some of our other meetings as well. Keep in mind, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this later, although we are a district of less than 10,000 students and we're not required to keep these things recorded, my stance has always been since I came in talking to you, and I want to be very transparent about what we do with the community, whether they're here or not. That's the right thing to do. And so we're going to go ahead and do that and continue to do what we've always been doing. So I wanted to put that out there. But as always, I want to start a little bit just giving you a quick recap of what's going on in the district. I want to thank those of you trustees who were there last week and SLT members. This picture you see here are 4 of our young men in Edgewood who just signed a college scholarship. These young men have lettered and have received rides to 3 different universities. Starting on the left, one of our students, they're off from JFK, is going to Chicago to Concordia University. The 2 gentlemen in the middle are heading up to Fort Worth, Texas, to Texas Wesleyan. They will be paying on the Rams team starting this fall. And then we have our young man in the blue shirt is going to North American University in Houston. And so this is actually the first time that our district has had 4 young men sign up or get signed up for college. So I thought that was really important to start out with that, and also so you get an idea why we do what we do, right? The work's always about making sure that our students get the best possibility for them in terms of the career or the pathways that they have. This is a picture with just some of our coaches. Again, it was a really good event. I want to thank the coaches aren't here, but you know how I feel about putting things out in the open. I really want to thank the coaches for putting this together. It was very obvious to me that the families were really taking into consideration, because this is really going to change the trajectory. I don't remember the coach's name who said that, But I thought it was really powerful. Is he in the picture? Yes, the gentleman in the back in the white shirt. We talked about how this one event's going to change this whole family's trajectory. And I believe that's going to be very true. And so I wanted to share that with you today. Let's keep an eye on these guys because they're going to do some good work where they go. I also wanted to bring to your attention that this is National Assistant Principals Week too in our school district. Right, so if you run into some of our assistant principals while you're out there, please thank them for their service. I was telling my team this morning, I can recall the years of service that I did as an assistant principal back when I was in Dallas ISD. It's a very thankless job because we always say assistant principals are the workhorses of the school. They're always doing things. They're sometimes the first ones to get there and sometimes the last ones to leave. And so if you run into any of our assistant principals, by all means, thank them for their service. I know each campus is celebrating their AP, and then our Office of School Leadership, Dr. Matkins, Mr. McElvain, Dr. Butler, they're doing something for the assistant principals this week. So again, I just wanted to put that out there. As always, these meetings are to ensure that we are keeping to our Vision 2028, making sure that we provide options and opportunities for our students, and that we keep managing the over $96 million that are in our care. That's an important part of what we do. We try to keep it very simple. That money goes into 5 priorities, as you see there. This is nothing new to you. These are the 5 priorities where we spend our money. The first one being priority 1 around people. You know, more than 80% of our budget goes into the people that are working in our district. So when you think about it, I want to say we're closer to 83% of our budget is spending on people. So it really doesn't leave a whole lot more left. But most of our, again, money goes to the people in our district, which is our number 1 asset, our people. As always, the goal, the express goal is that by 27-28, we have all campuses at B or better. Right now, we've met our target. 4 of our campuses are at B or better. That was the target. That target was met. So if we go into 22-23, the goal is to retain the 4 and add 2 more for this next school year. So I want to be very cognizant of that reminder for everyone. The other part of the locally developed goals were the ones you developed last year with Ms. Salinas, Terry Salinas, when she did the work in terms of developing our 2 locally assessed goals. The first goal was to make sure that we provided opportunities for our community to engage with us. That's why I'm putting up the flyer for the Black Club we had last week at Fine Arts. That's just one example. We have other groups in the district that meet. That's our goal, is to continue to meet with our faculty or with our community. And then the second one is the one that supports college and career readiness. So I used the picture up there very specifically. That's Sofia Serrano. We just recognized her last time for being the BPA. She's headed to BPA Nationals. And this is part of our CTE offerings, which is part of career, college, military readiness. So again, that's one of our locally developed goals. And this is just a small example. We've got kids that the dental assistants that just got certified, teaching certification kids, the phlebotomist kids, the kids that get Dell scholarships. Those are all examples of students that are enrolled in certification courses that promote the attainment of CCMR, which is College and Career Military Readiness. So that brings us to our workshop tonight. As I mentioned earlier, and I think I've already expressed most of this, we are going to start recording these tonight. I did cite the TEC policy there in terms of why we were recording it. Again, remaining transparent, taking into consideration that although we don't have to because we're less than 10,000, we're going to do the right thing and continue to record these and put them on our website. As always, board members, this was also something that you worked on previously with Ms. Salinas a few, at least over a year ago. We worked on Board of Trustees operating norms, so this is not anything new. And board members, I'm also citing BE local and BBF local because we just took action on that last month. So I want to make sure that you understand where this is steeped in terms of this work starting over a year ago, when you developed your norms in this room, if I remember correctly. And then the 2 policies that we use, the local policies, that govern how we interact with one another as board members and also with the senior leadership team. And so for this month, I want to be really clear about what we're doing this month. So tonight you're at the board workshop. That's the first part of what we do each month. We have some alternating months where we're a little off based on calendars, but we have our board workshop tonight. On the 13th, you will get an opportunity to come to the board performance planning meeting. That meeting will be sent to you by Ms. Castillo. And we do have two open times. They're going to be 90-minute times this time because it's a short week. It's a short month also, with it being Good Friday, and then the other one is Battle of Flowers. And then this is also a testing month, just in case you didn't know that. We have, I believe, it's 4 weeks, an open window to test. So there's a lot going on this month with regards to the school district. but we do want to make sure that we offer you an opportunity to come in and join us. And keep in mind, board members, the board performance planning meeting is more so to continue the conversation about the eventual adoption of the budget, which will happen in early June. So when you come on the 13th, this is going to be a meeting mostly about the operations and business side of things. So all the men and women you see sitting here in this middle group, this is who you're going to be speaking with that day. We're going to be talking about the items that are going up for your support and consideration for the adoption of the budget in June. As we do every year, that's a recurring cycle. And of course, we start that in January. And so that's another view of the calendar. This is a calendar that's very particular to you as board members. That will be in the PowerPoint. As usual, we'll send this to you. But there's some dates there. Keep in mind, our board meeting is on the 20th this month. It is on Thursday, April the 20th, not on Tuesday. So just kind of FYI. And then you see some other real important dates there also. I want to thank in advance this group, the senior leadership team, because this is the men and women who get all these items organized, researched, written up, developed. They start by working with you as every year in our work, or every month in our workshop. You will get 2 board updates. The 2 board updates that are coming to you will come prior to our board meeting. That's additional information. And then you've already heard me talk about the performance planning meetings. But I wanted to thank this group because of all the time they put in to get this organized, on top of everything they're doing in the school district. So I wanted to put that out there. And these are the items you're going to hear more about. I'm not going to go over each one of them because you're going to hear more about them here in a little bit. But these are the items that are going up for your consideration, and these are the people associated with those items. So we have everything from Lone Star Governance. This is the quarterly report is up this month. You've seen us do that before last quarter. And then there's items up for consideration, and you see those there. Adoptions, a new adoption with regards to the puberty video. Agreement with Big Rock, that is a recurring item that has now been in our district for over, I'd say, 2 years, I believe, 2 to 3 years. That's a recurring item. And then you can see all the other items that are there, which are recurring. A lot of them are things like online subscriptions, college onboard material that we use in our different programming. IMA, the IMA document that we are asked to present to the board, that's a part of the grant that we receive for IMA, or the funding, not so much grant, the funding that we get. And then, of course, STEM scopes, which you've heard that now for at least 3, if not 4 years. And those are online resources that we use, and you see those listed there. So I don't want to steal thunder from our groups, so I'm going to talk about it, but they'll be bringing that up to you. And then you've already heard me talk about Springboard and College Board and the team certification. On the operations side of the house, the business side of the house, you're going to hear about, some of these are recurring, some of these we don't necessarily talk about in the meeting because you get those in the update. Donations, financial statements, and all the other items you see there. Of course, you'll hear that from our CFO, Ms. Benderly. And then the other items that are up here, I can't see that well. Personnel contracts will be coming up again this month. Last month you supported the personnel contracts for administrators. This month it's going to be for teachers. And so those are going to be coming up to you here at the executive session at the end of the month. And then, of course, our auxiliary professional and auxiliary paraprofessional reports. And those are not anything new to you, board. Those are the same thing reports that we provide to you monthly. And then the other item that we have up tonight is our second reading of Policy 120, which we started last month. And then also we're going to be asking for your support on a resolution for the voucher, or what you've heard as educational savings accounts. And so there is a PowerPoint that Ms. Olga Makulis is going to be presented to you because we are asking for your support on a resolution for our school district that will go up with the rest of all the other school districts that are putting these out there. And that's sort of what it looks like, but you'll get an actual copy of it. And then this is just a preview of next month. Those are our dates for next month. As you heard me talk about things, we have our workshop, we have our board meeting on the 16th, and in between there, we'll have another performance planning meeting. And again, same conversation about budget, about finance, and that's recurring or supported information as we approximate the date in June, where we'll be asking you to adopt the budget that will guide our spending for the year 23-24. What you see in the circle there are just some other items that would possibly come up in the month of May. Board members, we gave you the yearly calendar. I think this was back in July, as we do every year. The items really don't fluctuate that much unless we have something that's coming down the pipeline from our friends at TEA. So this is just a small preview of what's to come. And so, Madam President, that completes my presentation. The last picture I have for you guys This was my meeting, my lunch meeting last week at Brentwood School of Innovation. I had lunch with the mariachi kids. And so board members, a lot of you, I think all of you have gone to at least one of these now. And so this was a meeting that I had last week with the mariachi members. Very good meeting, interesting meetings. The kids really want to pursue mariachi into high school, and a lot of their suggestions were around uniforms, support for the teacher, and can we start this in elementary and not wait until we get to middle school? Which, board members, those of you who were at Gus, I think it was Mr. Guerra, Mr. Valdesio would be there. Some of you have gone to JFK or other schools. What you hear is about the pipeline, right? Can we start earlier, not wait till middle school? Now, obviously, there's all kinds of things we have to consider. Finances, finding a teacher, talent right now is a problem across the state. But I'd love to give the kids an opportunity to speak up on their behalf. And so again, this was a great time with the kiddos and the teacher too. So thank you to everybody who participated. And so I'm going to turn it over to our Deputy Superintendent, Mr. Chavez, who's going to start the first presentation. Board members, I do want to, the items that you see in these presentations directly correspond with the work session. So it's kind of kill two birds with one stone based on your feedback over the last few years. You've asked us to present together. I still remember Mr. Gomez asked us for that 3 years ago. And then, of course, how do we tie in the presentations to the actual work session? So we're not repeating the same thing in the same evening, right? And so you'll see that these items are listed by letter, so you can correlate those, okay? So I'll turn that over to Mr. Chavez.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board, colleagues, meeting members. Today, we're looking at the study session A for April. And there's quite a few items that we're taking to the board due to the fact that we're passing the budget early June this year. I'd like to thank my colleagues putting this together, Dr. Robert Basunto and Dr. Kimberly Matkins. As we go on, our first piece, as you know, our superintendent covered the strategic goals for the district. And as we move forward, these are the images that guide us in terms of finances, Vision 2028, our mission, outcome, and our board priorities. Our intended learning outcomes for today are the following. There are several. The April 23 LSG monthly report, which will be focusing on TSI, LSG quarterly progress tracks for the 25th quarter, a girl's journey through the physical, emotional, and social changes in video, and a boy's journey through the physical, emotional, and social changes brought forward at our SHAC meeting this past month. Big Rock Educational Services for 4 of our campuses. The next pieces are adoptions for instructional materials, which include My Perspectives, English Language Arts from Savas Learning Company, McGraw-Hill Instructional Materials, Texas Studies Weekly, Imagine Learning, Learning.com, Accelerated Learning Incorporated, College Board, and our allotment and teach certification form for submission to the Texas Education Agency. Let us go on. Our Lone Star Governance Report for this month, as per our Lone Star Governance Monitoring Calendar, approved in summer of this year, for this board workshop, April 4th, we are covering Goal Progress Measure 3.1, Texas Success Initiative, and of course the board quarterly tracker for quarter 25. So for today, Lone Star Governance LSG goal is college, career, and military readiness, as outlined or highlighted in the yellow. And our goal is to increase from 43% to 85% by 2028, and our baseline was in June 2022. The goal progress measure that we're measuring today is the percentage of students meeting the Texas Success Initiative, otherwise known as TSI, which must be met in order to gain credit in both English Language Arts reading and mathematics on any of the assessments, which include the TSIA, our SAT, ACT, and college prep courses. Our goal is to increase from the baseline of 15% to 25% by June 2027. Of course, our baseline is June 2022. Let's see how we've progressed. You always know that I come with these bars and charts. Let's start from the left. The left represents the 2022 baseline of 43%. And remember, this goes back a year. So if this was the 2022 report, this is from the class of 2021. Here, I have the class of 2022. The class of 2022 predicts the 2023 accountability. So, by that chart, our class of 2022 was at 62%, which surpassed our 2023 projection of 51%. Now, this year, for class of 2023, we are sitting at 47%. That 47% has remained, and our goal is for 2024, 60%. The question may be, is that where we're at right now? Well, that's where we are at as of April 4th, 2023. For us to have this particular goal, we still need to have our SAT scores, which are still coming in. TSIA, which students are still taking from now to the end of the year. We also have our math TSI that they're still taking. We need to have our advanced placement scores, all of our dual credit scores, our industry-based certifications, and associate's degrees from which our early college high school students will learn. In addition to that, we still need our sorry, my mouth has been getting dry, I think, so I apologize. I'm going to take a drink of water. Our on-ramp scores, there we go, which we have not completed until the end of the year. So with this information, there's a couple of other indicators also. But right now we're at 47%. We anticipate that not only will we meet the 60%, but we will significantly surpass the 60%. So now let's look at goal progress measure 3.1, the percentage of students meeting TSI criteria in both reading and math, and SAT, ACT, so forth and so on. Here, our 2022 baseline from the class of 2021 was at 15%. Now let's look at the class of 2022, which predicts our 2023, was at 13%, falling approximately 4 points short of our 17% for 23. However, back in January, ladies and gentlemen, I reported that we were at 10% for the class of 2023, this year's class. I'm proud to say that as of today, April 4th, we are at 25%. If you look down the road, we met our 2024 goal of 19%, and actually, we met our 2027 goal of 25%. That's in our goal progress measure. So hats off to that. It's nice to know that we've got a little heads up 5 years down the road. So I'd like to thank our people here who are responsible for this, our academics and school leadership, and of course, especially, this is our students' province. As we go and look at the superintendent's evaluation, we can't help but say that it's a model. It's a model because what are some of the things that we're going to reinforce? In other words, what are the things we're going to continue with? Well, we're going to continue on the preparation for industry-based certification in CTE because it's not over until the end of the year. JFK, if you recall last year, had from our law enforcement group upwards of 50 individuals. We're on track this year to get that many, if not more, certified through that one program. I'd like to remind everybody, we have 14 career and technical education pathways from which our students can choose from which they can garner certification. Second bullet is we're going to continue offering high quality, in-demand, dual credit instructional programs. We've knocked out the state in the last year, surpassing the state average, surpassing Region 20, and we're going to continue offering dual credit to our students. Also, we're going to continue to focus on college prep for both English language arts and mathematics as an effective strategy for CCMR. Things refinements. What do you mean by refinements? What are we doing now that we can refine, make better, improve? That includes focus on our AP results to ensure students score a 3 or higher. The range for that, ladies and gentlemen, from a 1 to a 5. If you score a 3, a 4, or a 5, you get credit for that through CCMR. We're also going to focus on TSIA 2 in both English and math for students who are not enrolled in college prep. If I'm enrolled in college prep and I haven't met that CCMR level, once I complete that prep either in English or in mathematics, I automatically get credit for that. We have students enrolled in those courses as we speak. Finally, focus on SAT to increase achievement in English language arts and mathematics. Those are the pieces that we're going to reinforce and refine. Our next session, ladies and gentlemen, is our board quarterly progress tracker for the 25th quarter. Again, this is the piece that the board will be announcing at the regular board meeting on Thursday, April 20th. Ms. Garcia will lead that, and we'll have that information for you at that time. The next piece, ladies and gentlemen, is the adoption of a girl's journey through the physical, emotional, and social changes, and likewise, a boy's journey for that particular piece. So we have a male and female component. At our last Student Health Advisory Council meeting, this was Agenda D that was brought forth by Nurse Jennifer Alanis. She's here in the audience. She brought this forth for the SHAC to review to get their input as to whether or not to utilize this as a puberty video for boys and girls. This puberty video, many of you may remember this in 5th grade, where they separate the males and females and they show the respective video to each group. There is also an opt-out if a parent decides not to see this video. Nurse Alanis selected May 3rd as a date to show parents prior to the showing subsequently, so that way they may view the video and make a decision whether they want to opt out. I believe I'm going to recommend that we move that date prior to our board meeting on April 20th, so that way parents can look at it before the board approves. That's going to be my recommendation to Dr. Hernandez. Our next area is covered by Dr. Kimberly Matkins, and it's over our Big Rock Educational Services. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam President, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Hernandez, school leadership has one item that we'll be bringing forth for your approval, and that is the renewal of our Big Rocks Educational Services contract with 4 campuses. That would be LBJ, Loma Park, HBG, and Rand. All of these campuses are currently working with Big Rocks. Big Rocks is an approved, vetted improvement partner, in which TEA requires any campus that is a comprehensive campus or needing targeted support, they have to work with a vetted improvement partner. And so we'd like to continue our work with Big Rocks because we've had a lot of success in that area. Thank you. Yes.
We're gonna save questions to the end, right?
Yes, to the end of this part.
Yes. Go ahead, Mr.
I'm just trying to find out, like, are we still on item 4.8 on the study session, or have we moved on to the work session?
We're on work session item C. Thank you, Mr. Valdez. SLT, as you come up, let's make sure and mention the work session item. I know it's listed up there, but let's start by mentioning work session item C. That's what I was actually checking off from here. So this is work session item C, everyone. Thank you, sir.
Did we skip 4C?
No, sir. So 4C is Ms. Martinez. She'll come in after. So the way we have it is, we've got two sides of the house. Mr. Chavez introduces the first item, which is item 4A, the study session item, the deputy superintendent and all the members of the house that he serves, which is Mr. Basurto, Dr. Matkins. If Ms. Pasaldua has something, Ms. Salinas has something, you'll see them listed up here. And then he goes straight into his Lone Star governance, so that covers items 4A and B. As he's presenting his presentation, that links directly to the work session, and that's what I was alluding to earlier, sir. And so we have 5A that's already been discussed, the quarterly report. I think he mentioned that the board president would be having that in open forum. That's how we've been asked to do that by LSG. Item 5B is the Student Health Advisory Council recommendation on those two videos. That's where he alluded to Nurse Mia being here. And then now, Dr. Matkins just came up and did work session item C, which is the Big Rocks recommendation. So next, we're moving into, and who's got the clicker? I got it. Can you hit the next one? So next, we'll go into D, which is 5D. Okay? Thank you, sir.
Yes, good evening, Madam President, esteemed board members, Dr. Hernandez. So I'm going to kind of review with you items for consideration versus materials. The thing is that we want to make sure that we get them approved so that we can order them in summertime so we can have them in classrooms to day one. The first one for your consideration is the renewal of my perspectives, and it's the SAVAS, and it's basically our consumables for our high school language arts courses. That's section B. Work section E is the discussion to purchase supplemental instructional materials for the Texas Social Studies materials. So this one is Tier 1 materials for geography, world history, and Texas history, and that includes workbooks, okay? Digital for high school math, for Algebra 2, geometry, and pre-cal, Tier 1, and digital for high school chem is a supplement. Under F, renewal of Texas Social Studies Weekly, and that's for your elementaries. That includes the workbook and an online subscription for our K-5 students and other consumable workbooks for social studies K-5. G is the renewal of Imagine Learning, and that is typically our Edgewood, that's our credit recovery program, and that's for our three high schools. And that's giving us licenses, and that's for our kids who are aiming to recover credit because if they know their attendance purposes are that they be able to recover some of those credits, and that's the example that we use. Edgewood under Imagine Learning. H is the renewal of learning.com, and I learned something today. So this is the tech application that we offer for our kids that gives them the ability to get the digital citizenry and our cybersecurity, which is actually an E-rate mandate. So that's how our kids are able to get that, is through this particular one, to learning.com. It also has keyboarding and things of that nature. But I learned that today that it also covers the component under E-rate, which is mandatory, where kids receive the citizenry and the cybersecurity piece. I is STEM Scopes, and that's our Tier 1 resource for mathematics and science. In math, it'll cover kindergarten all the way up to Algebra 1. Science, kindergarten all the way to high school, so include the biology, chemistry, etc. Those courses. Renewal of Springboard, and this is for our advanced academics piece. And in Springboard, we're looking at getting 6th to 8th grade math and language arts workbooks under the Springboard. And then we're also looking at Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, Pre-Cal for our honors courses or our PhD courses at the high school level. Lastly, is the TEAC certification, the allotment and TEAC certification form, and we do this every year, and this is where Dr. Silva and I kind of go in through the portal, and we go in and certify that the materials chosen are 100% TEAC aligned as a Tier 1 resource, supplemental materials, and et cetera. So that's when we go in and we note and list all the courses, not all the materials for each of the grade levels for each of the contents. And then delineate whether it's a Tier 1 resource, that's the resource that's delivered on a daily basis, or if it's a supplement, that's where teachers have the ability to take that information of those materials and then supplement it with a Tier 1 resource. Those are all my items.
So would you introduce the members of your staff in the back?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I brought members to see if there's any questions that I couldn't answer, they could answer. I have Mr. Cloud, and Mr. Cloud is actually working in our technology division and integration. And then also I have Dr. Sola. She's my right hand. She's the director of academics. And of course, Mr. Jorge Garcia, who leads our wonderful counselors. And of course, you all know the great Dr. Butler. She's there. She's also doing school leadership. And of course, Joseph, how you decided. Sorry, Joseph. Mr. Rodriguez, these are actually senior leadership, and he's over bilingual and advanced academics. So I brought the whole team over in case there was any specific questions that I think perhaps an answer that I could definitely have them as a resource to answer any and all questions. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, item L, which was discussion to renew Power School Group LLC contract for Navion Systems for students in grades 6 through 12, utilizing ESSER funds. Due to the amount that we have, it does not go over the $50,000 and is not required for board approval. So we will pull that from the April 20th board. With that said, any questions?
Can you reiterate for item L?
Item L, you have the board agenda? Yes, item L is discussion to renew the Power School Group LLC contract for the Navion system for students in grades 6 through 12, utilizing ESSER funds. That quote initially came in over $50,000. A readjustment looking at enrollment. The company reduced it below $50,000. Therefore, we are not required to come to the board for approval due to the fact that it's under $50,000. Ms. Meredith?
So good evening, board, Dr. Hernandez, colleagues, committee members. Tonight's intended learning outcomes, you're going to hear about finance, human resources, and from our Chief of Staff and Communications. Our team is going to present specifically tonight about the agenda items that you're going to see. We're also going to talk a little bit about what you can expect at the board performance planning meeting. So as always, we go in with the focus of our 5 board priority and goals. We continue to support Vision 2028. You're going to see a lot of that as we go into budget mode and budget approval. Systems of great schools. All of these are recurring themes as we move into the budget approval process. These are things that you're going to start to hear, and we're going to start tightening those ends and making the connections once you come to approve the budget. We are in April. Ms. Benderly has presented this calendar to this team and to the board members over the last few months. We start the process of budgets way back in October. We pretty much button up when budget season we start, and we're already looking into next year. We are now in April. Dr. Hernandez has already alluded to the fact that on April the 14th, and that has now changed. This is how we originally adopted, was April the 14th. We've had a change in schedule. It will be April the 13th that we have our budget board performance planning meetings. As you know, that's what we're going to get into the weeds.
So every team member is going to have something to present, to include facilities, to include where we think we're going to end at the end of the year, and what we're going to do to move into next year. So we're going to have a lot deeper discussions at that April 13th meeting, and I'm going to let the team cover that at that meeting, but I wanted to give you a preview of what's coming up. With that, I want Ms. Beverly to start us off so we can go over the agenda items. And we are in section C. We're diving into the board agenda items.
Good afternoon, Board President, board members, Dr. Hernandez, and staff. So I'm going to cover my items. So the first one is going to be the work session. Item N is discussion of our monthly donations. This is a recurring item, and I believe this month we have, $8,500 that the board will be accepting as donations. Work session item N is discussion of the monthly financial statements. That's an information item only because they're unaudited, and those financial statements are through the month of February. Session item O, discussion of the monthly tax collection report. Again, an information item. And I believe we are pretty much on track for the tax collections as we were this same time period last month. So that is through the month of February. Work session item P is our quarterly investment report, and this report period covers from October 1st through December 31st of 2022. And again, it's a quarterly report, so you should see it about every 3 months. All right, work session item Q is discussion for a 1-year extension of the following RFPs. You know, the team has started trying, when they do RFPs, to do multiple awards, or they write the RFP where it's for a 1-year term, but you can have up to 4 more renewals. So all these RFPs have already been accepted by the board or approved by the board. They're just 1-year extensions. You know, the process of issuing an RFP, evaluating, et cetera, you know, it's a pretty lengthy process. So this is really it's a time saver for the purchasing staff, as well as staff that has to get together to evaluate, et cetera. So we are extending several different contracts that have already been approved. That's continuing on and finishing up with the extensions. All right, any questions? All right, I'll turn it over to Mr. Vino.
Ms. Bender, I am going to make one suggestion.
Yes, sir.
And just to remind all of our board members, for the board update, if you could please just include what RFP stands for.
Okay.
I know we've done that in prior board updates, but I want to make sure that just as a reminder to the board what the RFP stands for and what that process is. I know it's easy to cut paste and put it in.
Yes, sir.
So every board member can read it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board president, board members, Dr. Hernandez, and staff. I have one item this time that will be asking for your approval. This is an item that we had similar to last month. Last month, as Dr. Hernandez mentioned, we had contract renewal for administrators. This month, we will be going into closed session to discuss the renewal of personnel contracts. This will include our teachers, nurses, librarians, social workers, and instructional coaches. Again, we will probably have another opportunity in May if we need to take some individuals for recommendation at that time. This is going to be an item that we will discuss in closed session. Similar to last time, we provide a list for you. You can review it, and we'll take action, of course, during open session. The next 2 items that I have, these are recurring items. Is items S and T. These are our monthly reports that you get based on our auxiliary paraprofessional, new hires, resignations, retirements, and then also for our professional staff. So again, these are recurring items, but these are items that I wanted to make sure that you're aware of that will be coming forward for the board approval in April. Are there any questions? Okay, I turn it over to Salinas, Ms. Olga. Ms. Olga, I don't know.
Good evening, board. If you recall, we took the first reading of policy update 120 to the board meeting last month, which was approved. This is a second reading, so we have to do a second reading. There are 5 local policies that we had discussed. Going on the student welfare, the freedom from bullying, students' rights and responsibilities for grievance for our special needs students, student discipline and the code of conduct,
and what restraints we can and cannot use for special needs students. The federal revenue source, if we apply for a grant, we will now be publishing that information on the district website. That the information on grants does already come to you at board meetings and at workshops if we are applying for a grant. The other one is the safety program and risk management, which we already have in place. The only thing on that one that we're doing is that now, in the event of a train derailment, we will be a safety zone for evacuation. That's the only thing different. We've already had that for years here in Edgewood. If something were to happen, we use one of our gyms, we use one of our schools, in the event we need to evacuate. So that has already been in place for years. Now we're just adding the train question on that. So the next topic of discussion is going to be the resolution for vouchers. What we know right now is that there is a huge push in legislative session for Senate Bill 8. This is what we know about Senate Bill 8. It's going to create a savings education plan, AKA vouchers. We've had vouchers in the past, and what it does, it harms funding for public education. That's not a secret. It hurt us back then, it's going to hurt us again, and that is a fact. There are some stipulations. So one, any students who are not eligible are students who are currently in private school, unless the year before they were 90% in a public school. So students who currently sit in a private school, this bill will not be for them. But if we have a student who chooses to leave Edgewood and go to Holy Cross, St. John Bosco, St. John Birchman, or any of the other public schools, that private school will get $8,000 funding for that student. Which means we will not get funding for that student even if they live in our boundaries, because they are now going to a private school. What this bill does state is that for 2 years, since we have an under enrollment of 20,000, they will give us $10,000 per pupil for 2 years, but that only lasts 2 years. So 2 years, which is scary. It also states, we do know that private schools do not have the standards that we do at public school. We've known that for years. They don't have to require the services for special needs students or for bilingual students. They don't have to do that. So under Chapter 26, parents do have rights. They have rights for, they have rights for their child as they sit in a public school. They can come and check the teaching materials, they're allowed to check textbooks, they're allowed to get exams from students, like if they needed to go through special ed services or get counseling and get physical exams, psychology exams, they're allowed to do that in a public school setting. That is not offered, they have no rights like that in a private school setting. So a parent will ultimately lose their rights. Many parents do not know that. Because that is not something that a private school is going to automatically tell you, oh, by the way, I don't have to show you what the curriculum is. Or I don't have to get a school counselor or somebody to start a process for your child for special ed services, or even for bilingual services. Parents lose their right. So what will this do? One, it's going to take funding away from our public ed kids. It's going to take funding away from our district, which we already know that we don't get as much funding as we should. We know that because we're hurting everywhere. We don't get the proper funding for our students. What we also know is that they do not provide the same opportunities that we do. We take all students, regardless of their disability, regardless if they're an English language learner or second language learner. We take them if they're behavior. Private schools do not have to. We provide a free and appropriate education regardless. We don't have where we do not accept all students. Where we do accept all students, they do not. They are also not required to meet the same academic standards that we do. They don't provide STAR testing. They do have certain testing, but it's not the way we do. They don't have to send it off to the state. They don't have to send graduation rates. They don't have to, let the public know of their performance measures and how they're doing as a school. They also know that that parents who accept this voucher, again, are losing their parental rights as stated in education, in the education plan. And again, they don't have to accept all students. Oh, that is all. Sorry, I was on a tangent. So what I am asking, or what we are asking, is that you approve the resolution for the voucher that we are going to send forward. This, there, you will see, if you look at other districts' agendas, they will probably be doing the same. The majority of all Bexar County ISDs are asking their board to approve this resolution. Yes, sir.
Can you tell me when the district receives the money from the state? Is it when school starts, or is it at the end of in the middle of the year when the attendance is stabilized?
For this program?
For us as a school
I'll
system.
answer, sir. We give payments throughout the year. I believe we are on payment class 3, and I'd have to look at the exact dates that we do payment, but I will do that. And then what we do, after we do our final fees, that usually is submitted late July, August, the TEA processes it, and then early September, we receive what they call a settlement. So,
For the previous year.
for the previous year, now that could go both ways. If we're overpaid, then we would report a liability to the state on our audit for June 30th. Then we would have a receivable, a payable where we owe the state, and then they would reduce our payments the next year for that receivable. So that's one reason we monitor funding and attendance and enrollment throughout the year, so that we know ahead of time if they're going to owe us or we're going to leave. But in the board update, I will attach the payment schedule that shows the exact months of when we receive actual cash from TEA.
So that's according to the attendance at that particular moment, reporting? Or just-
They estimated what we do in, I don't remember if it was December or early January, we have to submit pupil projections for the next biennium that they use during this legislative session for them to figure out what they're going to have to fund schools with. And so that's what they pay us on. And then in July, we send that to teams for the previous school year, and then they go through a process of calculating, did we overpay the district, did we underpay? And then that's what they call the settlement.
Same thing applies to charters and private?
Private doesn't get any funding from the
But I
state.
mean, if this bill for passage, is there any wording in that bill to have them fall in line with the public in order to receive the same funds at the same time? Or do they do it up front or at the end, or?
I
do
don't
you
know
What
how,
was the question? I'm
bill?
sorry.
how will the public,
So they haven't ironed that out yet.
So they can, what I'm asking, what I'm trying to, and it's not gonna be anything regarding whether we vote for the voucher or not, I mean, the wording of the resolution. What I wanna know is, if they can, at one time or another, say, hey, you know, just like we learned our lesson from another entity that we are in partnership with, that they didn't meet their quota, they said, hey, you know, we estimate 3,000 more students, and we didn't get them, so it's gonna be prorated, or also, so they can, is the money, of course, it's all gonna be ironed out.
Right.
Is the money going back to the state and, or to the district that kid has to eventually go back to, because he's not cutting the mustard there in the private? What I'm hoping for is they don't get all the money, the kid doesn't cut the mustard, he has to come back, and then we're never get it.
So that was a question we, oh,
I can speak to the point.
was over, yes, so once the school gets that money for that year, that money is for that school for that year, regardless if the student goes back to public school. So that is what is currently in the bill. When and how they get paid, I won't know that, but that was a question that we did ask.
But as long as they get paid, it's in the pocket.
Right, I mean, they can get the money, they can enroll a student in August, and then in September, like, we don't want you anymore, you're out, but then they still have that money. So it is theirs for that year.
That's the way the bill is being introduced right now. Typically, what will happen, once that it is passed, then it goes, there's a couple of phases that go Senate side and the representative on the House side of Michigan, is that there will be a snapshot date. I'm gonna make an educated guess that it's probably the 15th date, which if you guys recall, a few years ago, we trained y'all a little bit about that. The last Friday in October is the King's Day. And so that at that point, that's sort of the Rubicon of all that. Once you cross that line, that's it. So if the student goes back, the money stays there. And so that's a lot of, I think, the concern that the public school systems have. I know through our conversations with our State Senator Menendez, Ray Lopez, you talked to Josie Garcia, their stance on it is that they are working, they don't believe the ESA is the best move that the state can do at this point, especially when our schools are not funded. So board members, I believe all of you got an email from Dan Troxel, the executive director of TASB, asking you to consider that. That's sort of what prompted this conversation. Julia Grizzard, if you remember, is our Bexar County Education Coalition executive director. She's been talking to Olga for months now, knowing that this is our legislative year. So that conversation's been going on for a while, but then Dan actually puts out the request of board members across the state. So all 1,100, give or take, boards are going to make that decision. The ones I'm seeing right now, kind of depending on where you are in the state, right? I will tell you there's a lot of rural communities that are coming out against the ESAs, even though they tend to vote very conservative. They're coming out against it because they worry for their schools and their communities, which is completely understandable. We worry about ours. We may be in an urban center, but we're almost like a small town here, right? And so those are the considerations I think that we're asking you to consider that are not on the PowerPoint, but that we would ask you for your support on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So board, you've seen this slide, just to close out, you've seen this slide several times. I want to point out what Ms. Bentley spoke about earlier, about efficiencies. We promised you, at least a couple of years ago when we started on the process of changing our information systems for both students and the business office, that we were going to start looking at efficiencies and what that meant. Tonight was just one example in going out for RFQs where we, in RFPs, and that's requests for proposals or requests for quotes, so that we can extend out and not have to publish, because that is very costly in time, energy, and also in money. You know, we have to publish in the process we have to go through. So all of those things that Ms. Bentley presented, I really wanted to reiterate that, because those are things that we're looking at. Things start to look different pretty much month to month, year to year, but those are just some of the examples and some of the things that we're working really hard at developing and executing procedures and operational strategies. So you can expect, we've been updating you at the performance planning meetings and every opportunity we get, and trying to circle back and say, we said and talked about this, this is where we're at. That's just one of the examples. So I want to make sure that we keep bringing some of those things back to the board to ensure that the opportunities you're giving us to make improvements, that we're following through with them, and this is what they look like when you operationalize those items and everything that you approve. So if there are no further questions, that concludes our presentation. Madam President, Dr. Hernandez.
Madam President, that is all the presentation. Board members, just a quick recap. There are 2 board updates that are coming to you. This Thursday, you will get your first board update. Your second board update will come on Friday the 14th. That's the next week. And then, of course, the board meeting is the Thursday the 20th. Now, because that is Thursday night, well, there typically isn't a board update after a regular board meeting, so that's what the note point. But there will be 2 more board updates and then the meeting on the 13th. But again, I remind you, the meeting on the 13th is more so to talk about the budget adoption process. There may be some questions that sort of would support this work, but the focus of that meeting is to continue to expand your understanding about the adoption process and what's coming up. Everything from recommended wages or increases to anticipated changes that we believe are going to be coming down from the state, if we have any. They're not coming down as frequent this legislative session, I will tell you. In fact, I'm going out next Tuesday with Ms. Olga to testify next week. And so if I have any updates, I'll bring them, but they're not very many right now. And so just a couple of notes there. And then board, we will get tonight's video up, cleaned up. We'll put it on our website once we get the website set up for it. And then, of course, as usual, we'll put it on the board. Any questions?
Yes, Dr. Hernandez, Mr. Marquez has a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
He wanted to ask about some of the items. I just wanted to let you know.
Mr. Chavez, Mr. McAvey shared something with the board too. So we have on-ramps at Fine Arts.
So currently, we do have on-ramps, which is a program in conjunction with the University of Texas at Austin that allows our teachers to go through a 2-week training period during the summer, and they concomitantly start that school year and offer that particular dual credit course. And it's also in conjunction or under the supervision of a professor at the University of Texas at Austin.
I think the question Mr. Valdez is asking is, he wanted to know if we can offer dual credit at the Fine Arts.
The answer is
So, so Mr. Valdez, the issue is, well, it is an issue, is that because you only have 100 kids, can I stand so let me hear? Because you only have 100 kids, right, that are coming up from grade level. You have 2 ways. You've got your AP track, you've got your dual credit track, and you've got your UT on-ramps track, right? I know this school year, Dr. Mon offered AP. And I had a conversation with Dr. Mon, Mr. McAvey, and I had, hey, we want to offer UT on-ramps. So that gives them the dual credit for the AP track, right? The problem now comes in if we offer dual credit, when and where. And so we could look at it, but the numbers are not going to make up, because typically your, for example, let's use the 1301 course section that you're talking about, the dual credit English. You have the UT on-ramp section, you have the dual credit, and you have the AP on-ramps. So you're not going to be able to offer all 3 because you don't have enough kids. So you have to make up your mind which 2 you're going to offer. And I know when I had a conversation with Dr. Mon, I said, you know, Dr. Mon, AP is good, but you may want to offer on-ramps because that gives you the dual credit track and the kids can start learning dual credit. UT on-ramps will count for dual credit. And so that is an adjustment, and I believe you can offer 2 sections of on-ramps this year, which is actually good. The problem is, Mr. Valdez, you have to think about, at some point, there's only so many sections I can offer. So that's one of the things that will come up.
So on top of that, I want to add this though, is that our success in the AP, if you notice, one of our refinements was to improve our AP numbers of 3s and 4s and 5s. So if we're looking at which particular program our students are more successful on, not only in Fine Arts but district-wide, they seem to be more adept at the dual credit. But as you said, we have students enrolled in AP, so we're looking at those 2 pieces, and so we have so many offerings. The question is how to lead those students to be successful in those particular areas.
That's a really good point, guys. The other thing, board, that I'm going to ask you to consider is we're coming up on the future where we're going to have to make some very strategic decisions. And I know I haven't had this conversation with Terry Salinas sitting there about what programming can we offer at school so we don't dilute our program. That's exactly what Dr. Russell was talking about. We want to make sure we have a trajectory of these pipelines so the kids go up their pipeline and we offer certain courses. I've talked to a few kids at these lunches that are having to pick. I want to say, one of you was with me at Kennedy Memorial, where the young man was saying, I want to go to Fine Arts, but if I go to Fine Arts, then I can't take the CTE course that I'm taking here. And they can't physically get there in time. Okay, so that's not anything new. I've seen this in a lot of other smaller districts where kids are trying to do a lot of things. We just today found out about a new tool that may be able to help us digitally with some of that. But we are coming up to a point where we're going to have to select which schools get what, and then we'll have to ask students to select. If you're going to go the academic track, you may not be able to do athletics because there just isn't enough time in the day. And so that may happen, but of course, as always, we'll share with you guys as we move in that direction. Yes, sir.
What if we had like one high school for all the students to attend, and that would be better, right? So they can take whatever courses they want.
Actually, that is yes, that is a good suggestion for this. And then you'll find that here in the next few years there'll be a lot more conversation about that. In fact, or I think that was a year ago or 2, I mentioned to you about possibilities for the future, especially now in a post-pandemic America where you have students that are not in public school. For our particular context in Edgewood, our birth rates are dropping. You know, most of our parents, our grandparents, there's not a lot of kids coming in. So we've really got to make some really hard choices here in the next couple of years. And we'll be ready for those. We've been planning for a while.
So given your scenario, Mr. Valdez, if we have all of our high school students, which would be upwards of 2,500 students, then the model that Dr. Basuto put forward, you could have, theoretically, even distribution between the advanced places, dual credit, on-ramps, and possibly even international baccalaureate. But it's the numbers that are the limiting factor. Good point. Thank you.
The on-ramps, I think when I was in college, in high school, it's a little different because you get to choose to accept the college credits. And then the college credit grade and high school grade don't line.
Yeah, it's at the end of the year. Once you've gone to the program, it's actually the student makes the decision, and we don't really have control over that. You could have gotten credit, but just decided not to. You're right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Other question?
Then, because I was looking at the CCMR online, do you know what the graduation type code 0405 54 55 is? Yeah, that's the one.
That is our special education students, so for our special education students that are leaving us with, some kind of career preparation.
Excuse me, ma'am, could you stand and then all the board members get answer to the question?
Yes, so the question was, graduation code 0405 55 and 56. Those are our special education students that leave with some kind of career preparation. So we get a separate CCMR fund for that.
And that's what you are. You just have to create.
So Dr. Masuko added that it has to go through ARD and there has to be additional documentation.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Macedo, let's add that to the board update. That was a good question. All right, Madam President. Attorney Matters.
Have more questions?
Oh, Mr.
It's like a question for the whole presentation. She told me to wait to the end, so that's what I did.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
My next question is on the work session number D, the puberty video.
Okay.
I want to know if the video, because Mr. Chavez was saying that it's opt out.
Out, if the parent sees the video and they decide that their child should not see it, then that's an opt-out that they can't.
Is the video different from like the middle school, educational courses? Is it that opt-in? Okay, opt-in.
I don't know what the middle school one is. I do know, it's a UTT help, yes, that's an option. Here, we decided because we're bringing in grades 4 and 5, that it would be an opt-out, unless there's pleasure difference.
But it's different than the UTT help, like the middle school?
Yes, it's a different age. Correct.
But the puberty video is opt-out.
Opt-out.
And I want to know if the puberty video, like what languages is the video?
It's in Spanish and English. We try to find other languages in that, but we only have Spanish and English.
If they have students speaking other languages, would it be translated?
We searched for that, and we could not find other languages for that particular video. We could do a search for the languages that we have, but at this point, we're kind of limited to those that are available on the market.
If we do have like a student speaking a different language other than English, Spanish, will we offer the translation services for them?
Oh, the translation services, by all means. Yes, sir, I'm sorry. I thought you meant you had the video translated.
I also want to know.
We usually have that. Cafeteria.
I also want to know if we have like the recording of the shot where they were recommended these videos.
No, we do not.
My next question would be for item number C. The big rock is only in, why is it only in four lessons?
Dr. Matt?
Sure. The reason that Big Rock is only in 4 of our schools right now, you have to remember that Morales and Gus have already gone through the 3-year program. So this is the last year for them. So we're bringing in 4 more because those campuses are, they receive a comprehensive targeted support label from TEA. And so in order for them to participate in the Effective Schools framework, they have to have a vetted improvement partner. And so that's the partner that we're working with right now.
Probably the rest of this is an increase in the
Yes. I believe that Corrales, I'm sorry?
Repeat the question.
Back here.
Yeah.
He wanted, I'm sorry, Mr. Valdez asked if we saw improvements at Corrales and Gus when they went through the Big Rocks program, and the answer is yes. That's also reflected in their accountability rating for last year, as well as walkthroughs and data dives that we've been doing this current school year.
I just have a question, like this room is kind of loud, like with the AC. We can like maybe choose a different location next time. So everyone
Mr. Valdez, can you speak louder so we can hear your question, sir,
can hear. I
please?
said this room is really loud, so maybe next time we can like select a different location so everyone can hear.
We've never had a problem with you.
But you can't hear me. It's different.
But
Like,
it's because the conversation seems to be over there. But if you raise your voice a little bit, we all can hear you. Can you do that, please?
I didn't raise my voice when we were at the floor of the room. It was different.
So we'll look at the makeup of the room, and we'll take that under advisement for next. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
My next question is for item number E. So like, I was thinking that some of like, it's like algebra, geometry, pre-calculus. So this would be like supplemental materials for item J.
Yes, that's correct. So the question he's asking is, you'll notice that in item J, STEM skills, we offer kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, right? So it's a supplemental material because the content coordinator felt that we need to add extra support for the teachers to translate that into all the science. That's under the chemistry.
They said this one would be just digital for item B.
Yes, the chemistry one in particular is digital. You look on the scroll, we look on page 36 or 37. I think it's one of those pages. You'll notice that it's on a digital. It's on page. It's actually on page 30. It's a 1-year subscription.
Would this like be tied to their single sign-on for the students?
Yes, that which would need to be for every child gets a 1-year subscription, right? And so it's a supplemental. Remember the difference. Tier 1 is the day-to-day, everyday material that they get. Has to be like to the text, 100% coverage of teach. The supplemental is other materials that you can bring in to supplement the class support. And so the content coordinator felt that we needed to add more support for chemistry, and that's why we were by those classes. It also comes with the teacher.
And they run that, sir, as you mentioned earlier, they can be single sign-on classes.
And I had another question pertaining to item E and J. I was wondering, like, what material is being brought for like students in AP classes?
So the AP classes, so remember, that's college board. That's what we use for the pre-AP AP track, is the college board workbooks. So that's why we do it. If you notice on item
J.
is it
J.
J, right? Yes. That's the one for the springboard college board. So we're doing those materials starting in 6th grade for the springboard, where it's middle schools, right? It's for math and reading. And then when you get to the high school, now it breaks off into the algebra, the pre-cal, and all those math, and also the sciences as well. So that's what that is. It covers the algebra, geo, and pre-cal.
So for like, this is like the regular courses, right? Like not AP.
No, we'll talk for the pre-AP and when the AP courses.
But I think we don't have, we just got like AP calculus. I don't see like any supplementary material.
AP calculus uses a different resource.
Yeah, AP calculus is different, but the pre-AP track, I'm talking about the pre-AP courses, you know, the pre-AP courses are to prepare you to take it to the, sorry, I'm not answering any questions. So the AP workbooks are different. They're like the dual credit workbooks, we buy them as we get them, right? And those are always typical. And I think they already have them already on the campus. Those are hard books, they're not going to do the pre-AP ones are the workbooks that try to offer every year, they're workbooks. So this, and they're for your pre-AP courses. They're the ones that are going to eventually use the AP track.
And specifically for the advanced certified, they also have to submit a syllabus, which outlines the entire year and identifies their scope and sequence, as well as the book that they choose to use.
Those books should sit at the campus. Some are, with blue grade and all this, is every 4 years they have to decide that's what they change the books on this. But they'll sit, the hard books will sit there, and that's why you're not ordering those. It's a little difficult because sometimes we do digital, sometimes it just depends on the animal. But in this particular case, the 80 books are sitting at the campus.
But for me, biology last year, when I was, we didn't have to know the material, it was just whatever the teacher presented their PowerPoint.
So that's when you come to the camp to, I know that we have books sitting at the warehouse, and there are materials that we order from the books. We'll create changes from time to time, of course, we have new courses, so that's when we order the books. So I'm not sure why no materials are going to be there, but I'll follow up with that.
That was AP, sir?
Maybe knowledge, I'll follow up.
And then for that campus also, there was like material that was like 10-year-old, 15-year-old American.
So these are renewable materials for creating.
I have a question. You were mentioning the E-rate navigate. Is that like a T?
Mr. Kyle, you want to explain the E-rate? The E-rate mandate,
Yes, so I'm going to cheat here because there's eight pieces related to learning.com, and I took a screenshot. So let me just tell you what. So learning.com, a program, offers content for students that involve computational thinking, coding, computer fundamentals, multimedia, online safety and digital citizenship, keyboarding and typing, internet usage and communications, and spreadsheets and databases. So basically the state mandates that students get exposed to this content, and some of what they have to go through is related to our E-rate funding. So my department makes sure that that is covered adequately. And learning.com is the program that we've chosen as the vehicle for this. Yes, I guess 8 components associated with learning.com. Sure.
In the top section covers the grades K through 8th grade. When I say topics, I call them technology application piece.
I have a question for item number G, the ingenuity. The ingenuity, is there like any like courses that will help like the students prepare for TSI?
He's asking about Edgewood and if there's any other components. As a matter of fact, we met with them 2 weeks ago, and they've grown. Because typically when we look at Edgewood at Imagine Learning, it was just strictly for credit recovery. They've now added more features, and one of the features is exactly that, where you can actually target TSI prep for kids, and then you would basically be able to get modules, and then we prepare them to pass the TSI assessment. So that is something that we actually learned about 2 weeks ago. And Mr. Hinojosa, we talked about it, and Mr. Garcia was actually at that meeting as well. We're going to explore how we can roll that out, because it has a lot of features that we weren't aware of. New now, we're going to see how we can incorporate it into high school setting.
They also have preparation for STAR, SAT, in addition to that,
Yeah, there's some others.
as well as advanced placement.
The one that caught my eye was the TSI one, because that one you can continually assess and see how many people pass the TSI.
And for the ingenuity, I believe like there's other like courses like ingenuity, like there's other software like Edmonton, there's different software that they like credit recovery and all that stuff.
That exists, yes.
That exists.
That exists,
But
yes.
This is separate. Edmentum is a group that just actually came by a couple weeks ago.
It's a different
They're a
vendor.
different company. So we have a lot of different variations of what they offer, and the academics along with school leadership select the best one that we have, so that way we can meet our needs. We actually even had a presentation today from Imagine Learning regarding possible use at the disciplinary alternative education program. So, and also looked at it in terms of HB 4545 for the 30 hours of tutoring. So we constantly look at these. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Some features come at a cost.
Yeah.
It's not included here, but we're looking at it, and if for some features that we feel like, hey, we need to add this, and it adds to the cost, we'll bring it back to you for approval. This is just for the credit recovery piece and some of the intervention pieces like the TSI, but like the one about BAEP, that's extra. So if we
And
were to
they're a
go
company,
forward-
so anything that we order.
Yeah, those are extra features. So if ever we bring extra features, we have to add to the price tag, we have to bring it back. Okay?
I have a question so can I ask any questions on like the monthly donations? Am I allowed to ask questions? I just want to know, because it was $8,500, one of them specified various campuses. I don't know what the various campuses were.
I believe they submit a list for the amount that goes to each campus, but I will verify that and put it in the warrant update, how they determine which campus gets what.
So on donation, whenever I receive a donation for a campus, they'll specify, even when it comes from the foundation, like the foundation does a grant, so technically it'll go to our accounting department, it'll say, Las Palmas has 2 teachers that applied for this, they're gonna get $1,000 each. So we do specify which campus it goes to, and it's very specific when it's a donation. Whether it's for a campus or even for the police department, it'll say this donation is specifically for this person, this campus, this department, and that's how the money is used. Yes, sir.
And you'll find that out what else they want.
What does it mean, like, we're on track for tax collection? Is that like every month, collect taxes from the properties?
Yes, that's part of our funding is our property values. And we have assessed, you'll find when we start going through the budget process, when we adopt the budget. In June, you're gonna adopt a proposed tax rate. And that is based on the estimated values that we receive from Bear County Appraisal District. And then we will review that in August and early September to make sure it's still an appropriate tax rate. So once we adopt the tax rate and all the other entities within the city and county adopt their tax rate, about October, Bear County Appraisal District will send out your statements with what tax you owe from the various different entities. And then they start, taxpayers start paying their taxes. And after January 31st, if they've not paid their tax, then they assess interest and penalties. If they have not paid it, I believe by July 1st, then attorney fees start getting tacked on because attorneys start trying to collect the outstanding tax.
We'll include a lot of that in the upcoming board performance planning meeting, as I mentioned earlier, board members. That'll be a lot of the information that will come up naturally in the conversation as we move towards adoption.
I have another question on it was a discussion for the 1-year extension for the RFPs.
Yes, sir.
Do you know what the service, the real estate appraisal service of the school?
Yes, we did that RFP, especially when we were looking at buying the warehouse, because we wanted to have it appraised to make sure that we were paying an appropriate amount. And another service that we're probably going to bring back to the board for approval, hopefully in a few months, is we have lots and properties that the people never paid the taxes on, and therefore the Bear County deeded those lots to the district, and we want to get those back on the tax roll. It won't necessarily help us on our maintenance and operation tax, because that's capped with tax compression, which we'll get into when we do the budget, but it will help on the debt service side, which is our interest in sinking. So we would like to finish getting the properties identified, and then we will have them appraised. Then we will bring a list to the board to have it approved to dispose of those properties. And my staff is currently working on a request for qualifications for a realtor, because we will have to employ a realtor to sell those properties for us. But, you know, they're kind of an expense to keep. For one, we're not earning any revenue on them because we are a tax exempt entity. So we're not earning revenue on them. Mr. Williams' group is having to maintain them, especially if, you know, rainy season and they get grown up with weeds, then Mr. Williams' group has to maintain them. So that's one part of the importance of getting them back on the tax roll and back in the community with somebody else.
So I believe one of our properties on Durant Street, it's actually someone's dog.
Well, maybe they would like to buy that when you all approve us to sell it.
Do you know what the timeline for this would be?
I mean, we hope in the next few months, but, you know, priority right now is the budget because we have to have that approved by June 6th. But we are identifying just to make sure and verifying all the properties, and we'll be providing that list, and the request for qualifications will be going pretty soon.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I saw a question, I believe it was SRT, so we have hired a director of communications.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Yes. We're actually bringing her to the board on April 20th. She'll be coming up to the board with industry. She was at our last board meeting, and so she'll be coming up. She doesn't sit on the senior leadership team. She's one of our directors in the district, and I'm going to introduce her to everybody on the 20th.
My last question would be for item number U. As this, because this is like our policies are local ones that the school like that.
Correct.
So we can still like change some of the wordings.
So we send those out. The board policies, will send them out to the people in the district who are experts in that area. So like the safety, so we'll send that out to our risk management, we'll send that out to the chief to look at. So it's really the experts that look at it and they make the recommendations to the board for you to approve.
So you know when the final recommendation are.
So they've already approved it, so you already did the first approval, which was last month, and it goes to task, it goes through the whole system, so now you're just approving the second reading, so these will all be approved at the next one.
For the item FNG, as a school board, we still have the authority to make the final decision.
Correct.
So I wanted to see if we could change some of the wording for the students' rights and responsibilities, the grievance process.
Okay?
Can you find the paper one, the page, I don't know. I wanted to, see if we could.
Can you ask that question because I didn't hear it? I'm sorry.
I said, I wanted to see if we could make some like amendments to the wordings for the policy FNG logo. Where it says, like all the wordings where it says student or parent, I was wondering if we could put parent/guardian.
So what I'm going to say at this point is we will send those to the department heads because they're the experts in that area. This particular video is for you guys to offer, to ask questions or offer suggestions. I hear what you're saying, and I know Ms. Flavia's hearing that. We'll look at that, but typically what we've done is that we'll go with the experts, subject matter experts, just like everybody that's in here. And so we'll go with the recommendation of the subject matter expert, which in this case is Ms. Flavia and her folks. We'll submit it up to you guys, and then collectively we'll execute the will of the majority of the board. So that's usually how that works. But we do hear your recommendation, so I think it's something we'll look at. If it's not anything that would jeopardize us as a school district or you as or us as a combined group, then we can definitely look at that. If not, then we'll submit for the 7 and we to make a recommendation on it.
I thought we were just saying that it was already sent to the department.
It is, but we still review those all the way up to the night of recommendation if we see something that needs to be adjusted. And so, but because we didn't know about your recommendation, so we'll take the recommendation back. But in the end, I guess what I want to communicate is we will go with the recommendation of the subject matter specialist, and then the 7 of you will look at it and then exercise your right to vote for it, against it, or abstain as individuals.
We can also amend it as a school board, right? We have the final authority of our local policies.
Yes, collectively, the 7 of you, yes, have the final authority as a collective. So the collective group would have to do that.
Isn't it good to ask right now?
Absolutely.
Like, what we can change rather than asking on the board, during the board
Mr. Valdez, that's why I was saying earlier, this is a good opportunity for you to ask questions and to make recommendations. If I heard your recommendation, it was, can we add the word guardian? Is that what I heard? So that was the recommendation. That's what Mr. Chow was asking, what was the recommendation? It was for, that we add the word guardian to the recommendation. So I'll take that back to Mr. Trevino, we'll look at it. And if that's appropriate, then I don't see why we couldn't make that recommendation. We'll look at it. Okay.
Is it to add guardian or is it to replace?
Add parent/guardian.
Thank you.
How about we have your recommendation together? So yes, thank you. Anything else on that one, sir?
I just want to know, because it says notice to students and parents, the district shall inform students and parents of this policy through appropriate district publications. I was wondering what kind of publications will be.
Which one are you looking at?
On page, this is the one you gave us during our board meeting.
Oh, that's the big one, okay. Is it for the same,
Yes, FNG website page.
it'll be on the website. Once this policy goes into place and you approve it, then that's when we start making all the changes and the recommendations. And it'll be added.
So it's our policy in town.
Correct, academies.
Good question.
Just real quick, how many as the district and school board go through, like, what level 1, level 2, like, their specifies? Like, what's the different grievance processes, just so we know, like, how it works?
So I will ask Mr. Mia to take that back that recommendation, and we'll look at it, because I know in previous years we have done educational series for the board, so that's a good recommendation. We'll look at it and see where it fits in terms of the natural layout of the school year. Some months lend themselves more to look at those things, and if nothing else, I think the other thing that we can look at also is to put that in the board up, so that we can do that also. And I'll also follow with the board president on that too.
Well, I also want to know, it says, if someone makes a grievance, will the district, or the person receiving the district, will they let the parent or student know that they received the grievance to start the process?
Yes, I'll answer that. So once the agreement is submitted, what we do is we stamp it. When the date that we receive it, the timeline begins. The date that we receive it, of course, is day 0, and then we'll begin our timeline for us to respond. So the complainant will get a copy once they submit it to the district, and then we respond. Accordingly.
And the grievance process is only going to be filed, like, paper, online?
What we normally try to do as our local policy, what we try to do is we try to resolve it informally. If it's something minor that we can address, then we do that. Of course, if it's not meeting the need of the outcome that they're desiring, then of course we go through the process, the formal process. Yes, sir.
Well, I have like a hypothetical question. What if like the parent or the student have a grievance against the ISD department in the school that operates?
So I'm going to ask Terry if we have an answer to that. We may not, that hasn't happened, to be honest. So if we don't have one, we can always come back with an answer. We don't have one.
So I've been working with, I typically work.
Repeat the question. Terry.
Yeah, what happens if an employee, right, has a grievance against the operating? Student's parent have a grievance against the operating partner. Typically, what I do anytime a situation comes up like that is I get with the human resource department so that we can analyze who needs to be the first level of that grievance. Typically, that would be someone either from school leadership or someone else that we appoint to do that. It really depends too on who the operating partner's employee is, like who the grievance is against. If that's the principal and the principal is under the purview or employment of the operating partner, then we have to handle that differently if they're our employee. And so, I don't know if that's correct. Okay. So it really just depends. So we have to wait till the situation came up, because that's a tricky one.
Terry, and I talked about if they opted in for our, to accept our code of conduct.
Oh, yes.
What happens?
Yeah, the other thing that happens when we enter into a contractual agreement is our operating partner, because they have autonomy over curriculum, running in the school and things of that nature, they typically get a copy of all of our policies, and then the operating partner chooses which policies they're going to abide by. And there are local policies that they're gonna abide by. And then if they don't abide by one of our local policies, they're required to submit the policy that is still aligned to whatever legal implications there might be or legal requirements. And sometimes that might even just be a handbook, right? A different way of handling attendance procedures and things like that.
Thank you, ma'am. And guys, the questions that we're getting involved in, we're going to include those in the process that everybody has. Thank you.
Is that it, Mr. Valdez? Anybody else?
I just have one last question. From the superintendent's report, you said that the board members were invited to the college signing, the JFK.
Yeah, I did. I invited the board officers that evening. That day was, or that afternoon. The question was, I mentioned that board members were invited. I invited the board officers. That evening was not about us. In fact, I was asked to go up and speak, and I think a couple of board members. I chose not to. That day was for the four young men that were getting scholarships. And so we kept it to a minimum because we wanted families there. We wanted the school environment to get the attention, because this doesn't happen every day. And so we made it about them, and I also wanted to honor the respect of the coaches and for the board. So yes, that's what I said. Thank you. Back to you, ma'am.
Started done? Anybody else? Okay. All your questions will be answered, or all the information in the updates, so we won't have to be calling the staff every day working on stuff that we need, okay? Remember? At this time, the time is 6:38. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay, raise your hand. Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.